What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Stationery Junkie. It's planner season. We are in the thick of everything. I'm sure some of you have already received your hobonichi orders despite the fiasco that happened on September 1st. I've been seeing a lot of hobonichi hauls on YouTube and on social media, and I'm really excited for the planner community during this time of the year. I'm also waiting for my order for hobonichi, although I did not order via the official website. Where I'm from, my local stationery store organizes group buys. That's the one that I availed of. I would actually say that it was the right thing to avoid the frenzy of ordering online on hobonichi. I've never tried to order via the main website, so I think that's a blessing in disguise on my part. I can wait, although I'm really excited to have my orders with me and talk about it on my channel. I didn't order a lot from hobonichi, just 2 books, which is a week's and an A6 day free. But nevertheless, I'm really excited to receive them soon. I have here some planners and journals that I have acquired this year, and this video is about talking through how I thought about what kind of planners or how many planners am I going to use for next year. A lot of people have been saying that we still have a couple more months by the end of the year, and I would say I agree to a certain extent, but I also understand why there's a lot of craziness and frenzy about ordering your planners at this time of the year, mainly because nobody wants to get lost in another frenzy of the holiday season. So as you know, during November come December, the holiday season, a lot of people are sending packages to their loved ones. If you're gonna go into that part or that portion of the year, it's gonna be a lot crazier. The mailing system is gonna be so worked up and so overwhelmed with delivery of a lot of packages. So I think it's prudent to get your planners earlier if you can. And I also don't blame planner companies coming up with early pre-orders in order to avoid the rush of the holiday season, especially for most of our friends in North America, wherein they have Black Friday, Cyber Monday. During that period, everything is just crazy in terms of mail and deliveries, and there are a lot of planner companies in North America. And if you are like me, who resides in Asia and the other side of the world, so to speak, you don't want to lose your package and stuff like that. So I've heard of these situations last year. So I totally understand why people would want to get their planners early on. So having said that, I'm gonna talk about how I ruminated or how I thought about my planner system for next year, thinking about what I currently have for the year. It's more of like an evaluation of sorts. It's to a certain extent a techo kaigi of sorts, but in a different way. But to me, it's more of like evaluating how I've used my planners. What was my mindset when I first purchased them, how I intended to use them, and if those intentions were met during this part of the year, and to assess whether those intentions still hold true today, and if I am going to be carrying those intentions over for next year. So let's get into it. All right, so I have here some of the planners that I'm using currently or I have finished using. And I also have here this piece of paper wherein I jotted down some of my thoughts, or like a flow chart of sorts. These are the questions that I asked myself while I was watching a lot of YouTube videos about people's plans for the coming year and how they thought about what they want to order for hobonichi. And I think there's a lot of us who are still thinking about what to use for next year, whether it's going to be hobonichi, whether it's going to be a different planner company or a different planner layout. Are we going to be doing one book or are we doing multiple books for next year? So this is how I thought about coming to that decision. So I'm going to be walking through each of the questions and sharing my answers in the hopes that you would also have an idea how to ask these questions yourself, or whether these questions are actually relevant to you. So I'm gonna go through each question one by one. So for the first question, how many planners did you get for 2024? I have used, or I have basically worked on around six, I would say, 6 books. So first is, this is a 5-year diary. This year is the last year that this book is gonna be used. This was gifted to me by my husband's uncle. So I am already at the last year. I will be finishing up this book. So this has been in my possession for the past 5 years. This is a Stationery notebook that I have used as a bullet journal. This is a B6 sterling ink common planner in a compact. This is actually a 2-book planner. This is the first half. I have used the entire, at least the entire structured portion of this planner. I've only used the first part. I have not actually used the second part of the common planner because I moved into a bullet journal. Later on, I will talk about why I shifted to a bullet journal system. And this is a B6 take a note. So very interesting. I have 2 planners for work and personal. So this take a note is my work planner that I have used for the first half of the year. I have used the monthly a little bit for some quick overviews of work-related stuff, and when it came to the weeklies, I have also used them to a certain extent. I have talked about in previous videos some of my struggles with this kind of layout and why I struggled with the separation of my work and my personal. And lastly, I have an A5 take a note which was gifted to me by my husband during my birthday. So I did not plan to get an A5 take a note. So this was totally not part of my lineup, but because my husband gifted it to me, I thought to make use of it as a language notebook or a language journal, which I used for only a couple of weeks. See, most of it's not used at all. I only made use of, I don't recall. Okay, I used it in January. That's that. So these are the planners that I have. I also don't have here my health planner, which is an N2 compact sterling ink, and a hobonichi weeks, which is my reading journal. I forgot it in my desk at work. So I have 2 more. And those are basically what I used for 2024. And the next in my question, what was your intention, or what did you plan? How did you plan to use those books in 2024? So like I mentioned, 5-year journal, work and personal, language. I have a health journal and a reading journal. Here we go with the flow chart. Did it go as planned? I would say if you're going to think about answering these questions, I would advise that you talk to yourself, or like have a meeting with yourself with your planner to answer these by each book. So for example, with my 5-year, did it go as planned? Definitely yes, it did. So why? I really was very committed in this book to finish it until the very last year. So and the fact that this book is not that big of a commitment to fill out, it's only a few lines, so it was not a hassle for me to stay committed to this book. So after answering, yes, it went as planned. And why did it go well? Because of the reasons that I mentioned. Do you want to do it again in 2025? I would say no. Although this did not involve that much work and the commitment was low, I just wanted to use it because it was gifted to me, and I felt that the person who gifted it to me knew that I like to write and I love notebooks, so I wanted to honor the person who gave it to me. That's why I used it. But after finishing this book, I'm not gonna be doing another 5-year journal because I just struggle with multiple books this year pretty much. Moving on to these two books, my work and personal, it did not work for me, mainly because of the separation, and I realized that separating these two brought about a lot of anxiety for me, and I talked about it in a different video, in a previous video, why separating work and personal journal did not work for me, and what are the circumstances in my life that made me realize that this is not the way to go. I'm not gonna be doing this system of separating work and personal. So in terms of the questions, do I want to do it again in 2025? No. Let's move on to the language journal. So did it work? No. Definitely no. I had so much stuff to do with work, and the fact that I started a YouTube channel this year, that added up to more things to do. And I also started the podcast of the same title, The Stationery Junkie. Just a very off-tangent plug that if you are on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, I just published 2 podcasts about stationaries and my thoughts about the hobonichi fiasco, and I'm planning to come up with a couple more talks or discussions and commentaries about stationery and planning in that podcast. So be sure to follow me there on Spotify and Apple Podcast if you are so keen to do that. Thank you. So I just had a lot of stuff to do hobby-wise, and I did not have time to do language learning, so this is why it was a fail for me. And the other 2 planners that I have, which is a health journal, did it work? Yes. Why? Because I was committed into keeping a good record of different facets of my health. Just keep it at that. I had a video about how I do my health journal, or how I use my health journal. So if you're interested to watch that, I will link that video in the cards. So it definitely worked for me. Do I want to do it again in 2025, the health journal? Absolutely. And that's the reason why I picked up a Hobonichi Weeks. I'm not gonna do the common planner N2 size again, because even if it's a compact planner, it was still way too much pages for me, especially in the notes section. So my route is to go Hobonichi standard weeks, regular weeks, to avoid wasting a couple more pages. So I'm gonna continue with the health journal because I still want to continue tracking my health. I am not getting younger, and I need to keep track of a lot of things in order to keep myself healthy and not incur any health issues moving forward. So definitely answering the question, is it vital? Yes. So definitely I'm gonna get another health journal. When it comes to the reading journal, which is my Hobonichi Weeks, do I want to do it again next year? I would say no. I'm not gonna do a separate reading journal. The plan next year is to do the same bullet journaling method, but to put together as much as I can in that one book system. So I'm going to be integrating my work, personal, and reading hobby in that one bullet journal system. So no, I'm not gonna be having a separate reading journal for next year. So this is how the questions come in. So I ask myself these questions per book so that I can determine if I am going to be doing the same thing for next year in terms of acquiring additional books. So next year I'm planning to study Italian, but I don't think I need a planner for that. I think I'm just gonna stick with a regular notebook, and in terms of scheduling my learning plan, I will just integrate that in my one book bullet journal. So these are the reasons why I need to come up with this kind of question and answer to better understand my needs. The next one is about the emotional state. What was my emotional headspace when it comes to these journals and planners? So for example, again, I'm gonna go through each of the books. So here it states to look at the previous entries or whether they are filled or empty. So for example, my 5-year definitely all filled. So I sometimes would backtrack if I miss a day or 2. I would say this is quite successful for me. Everything is filled, so I don't have any problems. Definitely loving this particular book. I'm more than okay with it, and there's pretty much nothing else to say about this book. But when it came to these 2 books, the one that I separated, work and personal, looking at my emotional state, thoughts or the insights behind this question is to look at the previous entries and to evaluate whether I'm okay or not with the sections of these books. For example, here in my personal planner with the common planner, I've pretty much made use of the monthly section and I'm totally fine with it. I have no issues. I don't need it to be filled to the brim with a lot of things. So I use the monthly section to just remind myself of certain important dates and stuff like that. When it came to the weekly section, this is what I did the first week of January, which is to time block all of my tasks and activities. This particular spread worked because these are all just personal related, right? This is a personal planner, so I cannot put in work related stuff. But when it comes to time blocking, that doesn't make sense because most of the time I'm in the office doing work, so I can't do time blocking like this. It will just be at the lower part of the day, right? Because this is just a personal planner. So what I did was I did micro journaling in the weekly sections, which is great, very consistent, and I love it. This is like my favorite part of this planner, this section of the weeklies, because everything was maximized to the brim in terms of deco and in terms of entries. So I love flipping the pages of this book because of that. And when it came to the notes section, I used this as a journal, long form journaling. I did a bit of momentary commonplacing here, and then I turned it into a scrapbook of sorts with some travel related entries. I stick some ephemera. I journaled pretty much. So this is how I use the notes section, but I didn't really finish the notes, all of the free grid pages here, which I think I would say is a little wasteful, but I would say I was pretty successful on the personal side, the personal planner. This one was a complete failure, mainly because I could not get by the weekly section. How do I fill up this portion? So you can see that even I journaled in the half section, the lower half section of this planner, and I really struggled because I was journaling in 3 different books, and to me that felt repetitive. Anything that I do repetitive in my planners usually do not work, and I stuck with it the longest that I could, but come April I just stopped. And I stopped using this planner altogether for work, and it was a shame because I really had hopes for this Take a Note. I love Take a Note. I really appreciate the work that they do to give this another alternative for us planner people, and the fact that this is made in Taiwan. I am based here in Taiwan, so I love having first dibs with this planner, right? I don't need to wait too long to get my hands on this planner. But the fact that this one did not work because I was not in a good headspace with the separation of these two. So that was my emotional state when it comes to this planner. And when it came to the language planner journal that my husband gifted to me, I was just in a very overwhelmed emotional state with this, because when I was restudying or went back to studying Chinese, I struggled a lot and I spiraled, so to speak. So I stopped using this book. So the overwhelm and anxiety that relearning Chinese gave me led me to stop using the book. So that was the headspace that I am when it came to this book. And I'm sorry, I don't know why I forgot to bring my reading journal and my health journal. Health journal, I don't have any problems with it. There are some weeks wherein I totally missed filling it up, but in my health journal video, the separate planner video that I created to talk about my health planner, I make use of digital apps, so it's not a problem for me to go back and fill those sections of the planner. But I just wanted to say this, that the more you put off not filling those weeks that you missed, you will never go back to fill them, at least on my experience. But I just realized this particular insight, that if I need to backfill stuff, I should not take too long to do that, because the longer I hold off backfilling stuff, the more I will not do it. So I'm still committed with my health planner. So I'm slowly catching up with backfilling some of the weeks that I wasn't able to do. So I was on a trip. That's why I couldn't fill them up as religiously. So my reading journal, that's the one that I kind of like struggled a lot. So in the emotional state that I had with that, because when you have multiple planners, when you're traveling, right, you can't bring them all. It's gonna take up space in your luggage, and the fact that it's gonna weigh a lot. So that's how I experienced having multiple planners this year. So that's the reason why there are some books that I'm not going to be carrying over with me to the next year. So I also said that, or I also asked myself, am I okay with some of the skipped pages or sections that were not filled out? Definitely for this work planner, I am not okay with it. So I stopped using this in April. So I definitely not okay with it. So I also mentioned here to determine trends because, for example, in my bullet journal, I just realized that there are some days wherein I do not fill up certain days. For example, here in my vertical timeline, because I could have been very busy during those days, or my headspace is not in the right track, I would say. So there are ups and downs in my mental health wherein I would spiral, I would have depressed episodes or anxious moments that I would not want to pick up my planners. So it usually happens at the latter part of the year where I feel a bit off mentally, and that's the reason why I mention here to determine trends. If you are struggling with some portions of your planner being empty or skipped, pages that are not filled up, look at the trends in, if you have your previous year's journals and planners, if the same things happen to you on a specific quarter of the year. The reason why I would advise for you to look at trends is because if at that certain point of the year that you are not feeling your planner, or you're not in the mood, or you're not in the right headspace, chances are you're gonna be skipping those sections. There will be pages that are empty, and if you're not okay with that, then you start to think that maybe I need a planner that's more functional or a bit more dynamic or modular, so that when I am in those moments of my life, it's okay to skip certain dates or certain weeks, and I would not be bothered by it. I would not go into an anxious state because my planners aren't filled up, and I would have some regret. And this brings me to my next question. Did you introduce any new planners? Definitely, yes. What planner? I introduced the bullet journal system actually in February. Can you believe? It's like second month of the year. I already changed my system. Did it work? Absolutely. Why? Because I've combined work and personal in this system. The flow chart here asks, do you want to try again for 2025? Absolutely yes. Why? Because I see a lot of benefits with just having a core planner for most of the stuff that I do, whether it's work, personal, like the chores that I need to do, certain passion projects that I want to do. If I just keep everything in one book, then I don't have that much worry of filling several books simultaneously and then feeling like crap if I miss a certain week, a certain month, I don't fill it up. So this is just for my own personal peace. So definitely I'm gonna combine these elements into one book. So, and then is it vital? This question, I took a page out of the bullet journal method asking certain elements of your life, whether it's still vital to you. By vital meaning, is it important? Is it crucial for your life? Whether if it will affect your personal life or will it affect someone else's, a loved one and stuff like that. So is it vital for me? Absolutely yes. Then I will get it. I will have a one book system next year, which is a B6 Night Owl by Owl Paper bullet journal planner journal. I will link Owl Paper Co website so that you can take a look what I mean about this bullet journal hybrid system, wherein the monthlies and the weeklies are the structured ones and the rest are just 300 plus of blank grid paper, which is perfect for me because I'm gonna be doing the usual original bullet journal method in terms of daily logs and stuff like that. So for example, in my case, it did work. So definitely I am going to get a one book system. I did not introduce anything else aside from that. But if you have introduced a new planner or a new system and it did not work, ask yourself, why did it not work? And do you want to try it again next year? So ask yourself these questions. So for yes, why do you want to continue or try a new system for next year? So depends on whether your what will be your answer to this question, and then ask yourself, is it vital or is it necessary? Then if yes, then get it. If no, then don't get it. And then lastly, what do you need for 2025? I think most of the planner videos that I have seen when it comes to thinking about what they want to use for next year falls into this question, because a lot of them talk about what kind of books or what planner companies do they want to buy from. But for me, I would say go a little bit deeper than identifying which planner company do you want to buy from. Think about what do you want to track. Think about the layout of what these planners offer and how do you want to use those planner sections. And again, go back to how you have used your planner this year. If you have used a hobonichi this year, are you going to be tracking the same things? Is the layout okay with you? Can you change the layout in hobonichi? If not, then maybe think about other options out there. If you are looking at other planner companies, how do you plan to use their sections, the different sections that this particular planner company has designed? Because sometimes we are just caught by cute eye-catching covers, but then we don't really think about what to put inside the planner. I understand that's the hook, right? I mean, I'm not gonna be a hypocrite here and say I'm not enamored by the very cute, very whimsical covers in hobonichi, but then at the end of the day, it's still the same layout as the weeks that I have used over and over again. I would ask myself the question about the layout and how I plan to use the sections in the planner so that I can really make use of this planner and justify the cost that I am putting into, that I am investing into these planners. So I would say those are my tips, or those are my suggestions if you are planning to use different planners or to buy from different planner companies. There's just a lot of options out there in the market, and that is absolutely incredible for us planner people. But at the same time, it gives us a lot of anxiety. It gives us a lot of FOMO, because even I go through all of those motions wherein I'm really thinking about getting an A6 take a note. I'm thinking about how I have never used a jibun techo, and I think about the layout and really think very deeply, how am I gonna use all of these different layouts? Or is this layout modular enough for me to change when I am not in the right headspace? So a lot of these things come through my head, and then sometimes when I have that planner in my hand at my local stationery store, then I have an idea whether this layout's gonna work with me or not. So I just wanted to add my 2 cents in terms of helping other people come to a decision on whether to get certain planners or to get multiple planners for that matter. So I hope this video is helpful and it's relevant for you. If you have any questions, please feel free to write them at the comment section below. And thank you so much again for your time to watch this video. And if you are so keen, please like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.